What's up, everybody? We're live here. If you're watching this on the replay, I don't have anybody in the actual stream right now, but this is just a little introduction for you guys. If you're watching the replay today, we're doing a live stream. I've got some questions on my Fluval Evo 1312. I think it's 12 Fluval Evo 12 officially. That I'm gonna say, and whatever other questions people in the chat would like to bring up, I'd be happy to answer them. Just a general Q&A today on this Sunday. So. Thanks for tuning in. If you clicked on the video, we're just going to get right into this once we get a few more people in here. We can get this going. But this Fluval Evo, hey Bob, this Fluval Evo, it's like one of my favorite tanks, possibly my favorite tank as far as like the actual system goes. Definitely my favorite tank as far of like the what's inside of it. I like the reef. Flint pre-cal homework. Ouch. Yeah, that hurts. I've got chemistry that I have to do, which is not going to be very fun at all. But I'm putting it off here, trying to get this stream going. So we'll just jump right into this. The first question comes from Mark on Facebook. He was wondering what the par rating for the stock lighting is and what sort of strip LEDs can be added to the hood to bring the spectrum and strength up to growing SPS corals. For those of you who don't know, SPS corals are kind of the stony ones that branch out more. Small polyp stony corals is what SPS stands for. They require more lighting, especially than what the Fluval originally came with. As far as the par lighting of the original stock lighting, I looked it up. I couldn't find anything on it, actually. I did look for it. Maybe I was looking in the wrong place. I couldn't find anything on it. It's not the greatest light. It can't really grow SPS. It can grow some basic monoporas, such as the red shelving one right there. That could grow under the stock lighting. But as far as adding any light to it, I'd steer away from adding like strip lighting to the actual hood of it because I've never even really seen any real strip lighting that can really grow corals. So I have a Kessel A80. I know some people use the Aqua Illumination Prime. That's a good light that people have grown SPS on. I would just replace the lighting and the hood altogether if you're trying to do SPS, because you really don't want to underdo the lighting on the SPS because they need a lot. So with mine, I just have a glass top that came from the side of a 20-gallon that I took down, and the I'm blanking now, the Kessel A80. So that is the answer to your question, Mark. Next, we have Nathan. He asked what the purpose of the two chambers are if you don't have a skimmer. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with this this tank, it has two chambers. You can kind of see one back here that I've got going. It's set up like a regular all-in-one. You've got one chamber where the water flows in, and then it goes down into the next chamber where the main filtration is if you're doing the regular setup, and then the return chamber over here. It's pretty basic. If you don't have the skimmer, which is in the first chamber, if you buy the skimmer, I actually replaced it with a refugium because I didn't like the skimmer a whole lot. It didn't end up doing things that I needed it to do. It was doing its job, but I just didn't need it to do its job in this tank. I needed something else. So in the first chamber, I have the filtration. I have a DIY egg crate thing that allows it to go through filter floss and then biomedia. And then once it goes through all that, it goes into the second chamber. This is all the filter. This is the second chamber, which is a refugium. I've got chaeto growing in there and other macroalgae, which removes some nitrates, and then it goes into the return chamber. So you can do whatever you think you might like in there or what you might need. Some people I know put like a GH reactor in there. Just a bunch of different stuff depending upon the needs for your tank if you don't have the skimmer. So it's really up to you. So there's the answer for your question, Nathan. Elise, she says, I am totally new at this, coming from freshwater. Welcome to the saltwater side of the hobby. I came from freshwater too. Saltwater, dare I say I like it better? I know we've got a lot of fresh people in here, so I'm not gonna go straight out and say that, but I do like saltwater a lot. She'd love to know what the best heater is for fitting in the return chamber, and do you need power head right away? She'd like to try some corals at some point, but not right away. even if you have fish in the tank, I suggest getting a power head because the returns over here, I'll show you right quick. The returns, they don't they don't shoot out a whole lot of water. So even the fish like swimming around in the current and stuff. So I would put, just a regular power head maybe over here, keep the flow going, get the detritus picked up and into the filter in the back, or you could put one over here. I've got a gyre uh, power head from Ice Cap right there. I did a review on that on my channel, but you don't need to go overkill like that. That's something that's like a really, really nice power head. You could just do something like a high door power head for the picking up the detritus, and so the fish have something to swim around in. As far as the heater goes, I don't really, I'm trying to think of the one that I have. It's pretty, anything that fits in that back chamber will do the trick, especially if you have a controller like I do, and you can turn it on and off with a temperature probe. That's the best case scenario, obviously, but I know the Fluval one that they market to go with it fits in there really nicely and works well, so you could try that out. Really anything anything around 6 inches long will fit in that chamber nicely. So that's that. I mean, there's the answer to your question. I don't really have a specific heater that I like. There isn't really a best heater. It's just a really small heater for a small tank. That's all you really need. So those are the questions about the Evo. I do have my own opinions on the Evo. I did a review, which is actually one of my best videos, so I'm sure most of you have seen that if you're watching this live stream. But it's something worth checking out if you're looking into going into the saltwater side of the hobby. And that's pretty much it as far as the Evo goes. If anybody has any other questions, pop them right in the chat. This is an open Q&A. I'm just calling it that. It's more like a fish chat live stream. I don't have a whole lot planned because my computer is still on the fritz. Waiting for it to come back from the customer support place. It's taken way too long, but that is the life of a YouTuber, I guess. We could just do a fish tank update. Nothing a whole lot new, I'm trying to think. This pothos I have in this 10-gallon is growing absolutely insane. I need to start trimming it. This is one of the other ones that I clipped off, and it's grown multiple leaves. And then there's another one growing over here, so I need to start trimming some of that off. I hate to trim stuff off that I'm not gonna end up replacing or putting in one of my tanks, but I don't like throwing stuff out. But I think I'm going to have to at this point. It's really kind of getting out of control. I'm just trying to think of content. If you guys have any ideas for YouTube videos, something you want to see, something that you want answered, some sort of DIY type thing, throw them in the chat or in the comment section after this video is over, and I will be happy to look at those because content's kind of in short supply. It's hard because nowadays everybody has done like every single video multiple times, so I like to do new stuff, but there's a very shortage of new stuff surrounding the fish hobby that I can really do. So the biggest thing is finding new content to put out for you guys that you haven't seen already and doesn't get boring for you, And thanks for the likes. If you haven't dropped a like, make sure to leave it. It doesn't cost you anything. It helps me out a lot. So that's just a nice gesture. And let's see. I don't know if you guys can see the poster up there. My brother made that for me last Christmas or my birthday. I'm not sure. But that's a little Fish Nerd Vlogs poster up there. Yeah, I don't know. I might end up just cutting this short because there's not a whole lot to talk about. Oh, that's new. I got a tuxedo urchin in recently this week from the fish store. That's the little guy. Usually they get pretty big. I've seen some like they're baseball size. they get pretty big. This is a nice little guy for my tank. I'm hoping that he'll go around and get some of the hair algae that's up. Um, but a really interesting thing about these guys is that they take their tentacles and they attach them to things around them as sort of a natural camouflage, and then they'll bring them onto their back. Like that little piece of shell that he's got on his back, you'll see them picking up whole frag plugs and stuff just to camouflage themselves in their environment. It's just an instinct. I don't even know if it's an instinct because I think it just happens naturally with their tentacles reaching out for things, but they will cruise around and eat a bunch of algae. They're really good at picking up algae, and he did eat, like, I put him down in this spot, and it used to look like that. And I put him down right there, and he ate all that, but he didn't go around at all in the other spots. So he really needs to put in some work because all he's doing is cruising around on the bottom, which I do not need at this point. So need him to start cleaning up. The tank itself is doing well. I need to do a water change soon, maybe Tuesday. Um, and other than that, the 20 gallon is doing very well. I'm thinking of picking up some more tiger barbs or maybe something else. It's hard to find something that'll do well with tiger barbs because they can be kind of aggressive as a school. But I've heard some success stories about maybe gouramis or something like that. We'll see what I end up doing. I have to scrape this down. Is that the Innovative Marine 14? No, this is the Fluval Evo 12. The Innovative Marine 14, I think, has the long side. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's the long side behind it is blacked out and has the filter, where the Fluval is more of like a what's the word I'm looking for? It comes out more so you can have it. Just the back of it disguised. This is where the filter is on the Fluval, and Innovative is back behind here. So it's more of like a lengthwise display instead of jutting out into the room, which I like this design a little bit better because you can see, 360 basically all around it. And it's good for coral as far as being able to you can put them all around because you can view all of it. So that's my thoughts on that versus the Innovative Marine. I have had a little bit of experience with the Innovative Marine. Those are good tanks. They're good. I just happen to like the Fluval a little bit better. I might be biased because this is the one I have, but it just seems to flow a little bit better than the Innovative Marines. But those are good. Those are good beginner setups for saltwater if you're looking to get into it. Yeah, easy access. That's true. Let me grab the chat here. Yeah, it's much easier to get all the way around it and stuff. But a word to anybody getting into it: get a better stand than this. Most of you have probably seen my video where my fish goes off at me for it. That's one of the more creative videos I've done, but this stand really kind of crapped out on me, so I might have to switch that up at some point. Neil asks, why no substrate? The substrate really... Let me fix this out a bit there. The substrate, I had it for a while. You need a substrate if you have any wrasse because they like to bury themselves in the sand to sleep and such. But I like the no substrate because it's much, much easier to maintain. All the detritus just gets, laid out on the glass of it, which eventually gets covered by macroalgae, or I'm sorry, coralline algae. So it looks it starts looking more natural than if it was just glass. The regular sand also picked up a lot of red slime algae, which I've got a little bit there. Just for an example, I got to suck that out. So just for ease of maintenance, if I had a wrasse in here, I would have sand in here. But it helps with the flow as well. I've got a lot of flow in here, especially over like in this direction. I've got a lot of SP here, So I think most of this would be bare anyway because the flow would kick up the sand, and that wouldn't be very fun. So that's why I do not have any sand in the tank. Aesthetically, I like it without the sand. Some people don't, which is, a fine opinion. I used to not like it with bare bottom, but just practicality is the main reason that I don't have any sand. Which is why I have, which actually that's interesting because that's why I have sand in all of my freshwater tanks because it's easier to maintain than gravel. It's all about, especially when you're maintaining a lot of, multiple tanks, which I'm sure most of you are aware of. It's all about making it easier to clean the tanks as quickly as possible because especially if you have like 20 tanks, like I know most, a lot of, I wouldn't say most, a lot of us in the fish fam do. You've got like 20 tanks. It's not doable. It's not doable to have a whole lot of gravel that you have to vacuum and such. To fix the lighting. Lighting was blowing my face out a bit. Oh, it still kind of is. So, if anybody has counter arguments to that, you can leave them in the chat. But, thanks for tuning in. I'll probably cut it around the 20-minute mark like usual. It's just the channel's a bit too small to do a live stream, which is why I don't usually do live streams. I like to put out videos, but I can't put out a video without my computer because I need to edit it. And I mean, I guess I could do like short unedited videos, but I might as well do a live stream at that point. Because I spilled, I don't know, you might, if you hadn't caught the other live streams, this tank right here, the filter, the output pushed up and started aiming out of the tank. I should do a video on my Malawi tank. Yeah, I could do like just a rundown of that tank. I don't have a whole lot of projects on the tank, which is why I usually don't do anything on that tank, but I should do a just kind of an update on it. That's a good idea. But anyway, the filter was shooting water out of the tank, which was very unfortunate, and it was landing on my computer, which was sitting right where the iPad is. And usually I take it and I put it over here, so it's out of the way, just in case that happens. But that was just like the one day that I didn't, and of course, it ended up biting me in the butt. Your electronics away from your fish tanks because you never know what crazy stuff might happen. It like ruined like the past month for my YouTube channel, and I'm not a fan of doing live streams. So that is the danger of being a fish tank YouTuber, apparently. The Maui tank, nope, am I back? Can you guys see me? I got disconnected for a second there. I think it's working now though. But I was saying the Maui tank is super stable, which is why I was really scared to do any changes to it, especially with the decoration that I did. I did a bit of an update when I did the aquascaping with the cool wood that I found on vacation. But that that wasn't. I didn't really give any specs of the tank. Actually, just this past, I think it was Friday. It might have been yesterday. I don't know. After school started, all the days blend together for me. But one of my filters, it was an AquaClear 110, started leaking. It was dripping from like the motor. The O-ring around it got worn out. So it wasn't waterproof anymore. And it was dripping down, and I was losing probably about 5 gallons a day out of it. So I had to take that off, and I still have to fix that, maybe get a new O-ring for it or something like that. So I've only got one filter running on it right now. Hopefully it is not still leaking. I thought that I found that, and I didn't see anything downstairs earlier, so hopefully that's not leaking anymore. I don't know what this like month is, with every single one of my tanks leaking, but it really blows, man. It really blows. I hate having water all over the place, obviously, but the worst part is that I'm not living on my own, so my entire family has to deal with it, which is why I'm really glad the 60-gallon is in the basement, because if I had 5 gallons of water leaking through the floor, it would be it would be really bad. I figure I'd probably be ending up getting rid of that tank because my parents would hate me for it. But it's in the basement, so we're okay. We are okay. Has anybody had a tank that leaked? Let me know in the chat. It's reassuring to know it happens to like a lot of people. I always knew it was kind of a matter of time before it happened to me. I was actually kind of worried about this 10-gallon for a while because I thought I saw like a bubble in the silicone. I ended up re-siliconing it. And this tank I've had forever. This was my first tank. It was a goldfish tank. I had 3 goldfish in it, like really big goldfish in it. And I ended up going out into my creek behind my house and catching two crayfish. Um, and one of the goldfish ended up dying. One of the crayfish ended up dying. And I ended up naming the 2 remaining goldfish and the 1 crayfish Obi-Wan and Kenobi because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. And then the crayfish Kenobi, I think ended up eating Obi and Wan, but they probably died because I wasn't doing any water changes and I knew nothing about fish keeping at that point. I've killed my fair share of goldfish when I was young. I ended up killing my brother's goldfish when I was like 5 because I dumped all the food into the tank, which was not a good idea because he ended up just like eating himself to death, which it wasn't very fun. Sorry for your dumb question, Tom Reefman. Were you on the Evo one? I didn't see it. I'm gonna scroll through here, Tom Reefman. Oh, is it the innovative marine question? It wasn't a dumb question. It's confusing. It's confusing to know which one it is. Innovative marines are more expensive too. I don't think they're worth the extra money than the Fluval ones. So if you're looking to save money, I'd go to a Fluval one because they've got really minimal silicone as well. It's a nice design. I'm probably gonna do a little bit more as far as planted tanks go. For my 10-gallon, I've got some Anubias. I was on the Water Boxes stream yesterday. I was asking questions about my Anubias because you can see it's got a little bit of yellow in there, which means I've got magnesium deficiency in the tank. So I might end up dosing magnesium or something for that. Otherwise, it's growing pretty well. I have to get another light for this tank because I've got a really cheap LED one on it right now because my floodlight one like overheated and it is not working anymore. So, every day is exciting. There's always something new, something to deal with. I mean, that's life, I guess, but it had to all happen right when I started school because nothing ever happens when I've got a ton of time on my hands and I'm doing nothing, right? That's life. Um, Quick tip. I've got an idea. A quick tip for anybody who has a Fluval tank or any sort of mini nano tank that they can't keep cool in the summer. I had issues with this, especially with this reef tank. It doesn't matter as much with a freshwater tank because it can fluctuate up and down. Fish are okay with it, but coral is not okay with multiple degrees up and down. Just run a fan over the top of it. You get a little bit more evaporation. It's something you can deal with. It's much better than having to, buy all new fish and new coral because your tank overheated. And I have used many fans, but this thing is a stallion. It's like from the 70s. It will run nonstop. At one point, I ran this like nonstop for like 2 weeks, and it wouldn't even get hot. Like, and then I bought a smaller like black one, a nicer one, just so it looks a little bit better on the tank and was smaller and more discreet. And it burned out in like a month. So find yourself a fan from the 70s and set it up over the tank, and you're good to go for the entire year. Am I dosing my reef? Yeah, I am. The size of the tank, they say it's 13 gallons, but you take a lot of that out, so it's with the rock and stuff, so it's probably around, I'll just say 10 gallons. And I've got a lot of coral in it. I've got some Euphyllia and I've got a bunch of 8 cans, a ton of Monopora in there, and I'm always adding stuff. I also have Fabio over here, so it's sucking up alkalinity and calcium. I don't dose a whole lot, but it is much easier than doing water changes super fast or a lot. Okay, see you, Neil. Thanks for tuning in, man. Um, it's I would have to do water changes like every day, and the hardest thing is with the water changes is that the water that I get it's from the store, and sometimes it varies as far as salinity and all that. So I'm not mixing my own, and especially even some brands like whoa different batches mix up differently. So you might get a batch that mixes up with like 10 alkalinity, and you might mix the same salinity in another box of that stuff, and it'll give you like I don't know 4 alkalinity, not that low, but like 8 or 9 alkalinity. So a- it's especially I've noticed with the Fritz stuff, it mixes up a little bit more randomly because it's smaller batches. They say like they make it in smaller batches, but it's also harder to get a consistent alkalinity and calcium reading. So I do use the I don't even know. It's this. Oh yeah, the bionic stuff. People like everybody uses this. I mean, it's the Fritz. I'm not a huge fan. Um, I haven't. I mean, I've used it a couple times. They don't come in the big tubs like that though, that I've seen. So this, I mean, I bought a long time ago. I bought probably about 6 months ago. I'm not even, and I'm dosing maybe 2 or 3 milliliters a day. It's really nothing. I'm trying to get the light. Every time I switch out of forward and backward camera view, it screws up my white balance and my brightness. Um, let's see. Flip around with this. No. There we go. What is the biggest difference in maintenance between fresh and salt water? The biggest difference, there aren't a whole lot of differences, but the biggest difference would have to be that the fresh water you don't have to worry about alkalinity and calcium. Salt water, when you're mixing up and you're taking out the different um, like your amount of water. Say I change 5 gallons every week. I change 5 gallons out of which is about a 50%. I have to make sure when I'm doing that that the alkalinity and the calcium and the temperature of the water is exactly the same as it is in the tank when I'm putting in the new stuff. Because if you swing the alkalinity, say from like 10 ppm, and you swing it down from, if you swing it down to 8, then your coral is going to have a rough time adjusting, especially if you have a little bit more fragile corals. Same thing with calcium. If it swings up like 100 points, your coral is going to die off. So there's a lot of testing involved. I've got a ton of test kits. I got 1, 2, and let's see. I can't even remember what drawer. 3, 4, 5. I've got like 6 test kits, and they're not. Most of them don't do the same thing. I've got maybe 1 or 2 that do the same thing. Um, and you need to test like 5 different things before you do a water change. Because if they're wrong, then you're gonna end up killing your stuff. And if it does end up being wrong, then you need to use your dosing stuff, and you need to dose the water that you're putting in to get to exactly the same level as the tank. So it takes a lot more time with a nano tank. A larger tank, you don't need to worry about that as much because keep coming in and out of connection here. But yeah, consistency, consistency, consistency. That's key with a saltwater tank. Freshwater tank, you just got to get the ammonia out of there. That is the biggest thing: the nitrate and ammonia. Um, as far as water changes on my freshwater tanks go, I don't even do them. Like I'll do them on my cichlid tank in the basement because they, build up a lot of bad nitrates and ammonia and stuff because I've got that tank pretty highly stocked. But like this 10-gallon, haven't done a water change on in months. I only change water in this tank if I'm trying to clean it out. And it's all because of the plants that I have in these tanks. They use up all of the nitrates and ammonia, and I mean, I'll test it, and it's not nearly bad enough to do a water change. And even with freshwater stuff, you want consistency. So if you don't have to mess with it, don't mess with it. That's my motto. It's also way easier. So I'm like, I don't really have to do a water change on the freshwater tanks, so I won't do it. What do I enjoy more, fresh or saltwater tanks? Um, they each have their own attraction to me. Freshwater is way easier, so it's easier to enjoy that tank, to sit here and just like look at it and watch it and stuff. You don't have to do a whole lot of stuff for the freshwater tanks. Saltwater tanks, I believe, are prettier. They are more entailed. There's way more wildlife in them because especially if you have coral. I think the colors are better from them, but they are a lot more work. Like I spend the same amount of time on this 10-gallon saltwater tank as I do all my freshwater tanks combined. If I was really like working on them, like I don't even do to do a water change on my 60-gallon tank. It takes like a half hour to do a water change on this. It takes about an hour to do one on the saltwater tank. So they each have their ups and downs. If I had to pick one, if I had to get rid of all my other tanks and I had to pick one type of tank, I would pick the saltwater tank because it's more rewarding. There's more to do. So if I had to pick one, I'd say I like saltwater more. But that's nothing against freshwater tanks. Um, there's a bunch of freshwater tanks, like especially the bigger planted tanks, that are really hard to take care of. Like you've got the CO2 and all sorts of other dosing. That's really hard, and I'm not into that with the freshwater side. Um, but if you ask any of those guys, they'll tell you that it's way more entailed to do like the planted tanks than just a regular freshwater tank. But nothing compares to the saltwater. Top chat. Let's see. What's the parameters on my reef? I keep my alkalinity around 9.3. I like to keep my calcium between, like 380 and 400, I believe, is the numbers. I have them all written down, but it's under a bunch of crap, so I'm not going to try to get that. So yeah, it's around 9.3 and around 400. They can fluctuate up and down maybe by like, especially like the calcium, maybe by like 10 or 20, but it's only, over a week if the dosing is a little bit off, and then I need to change the dosing. But it stays pretty solid, especially the alkalinity at 9.3. It stays really solid right about there. Thanks for the question. More into big planted tanks, but you always want to try out saltwater. Definitely try it out. It's especially with the plant, if you're into like the CO2 planted tanks, my nitrates and phosphates, those things I've been battling for a while, Tom, and I'll get to that in a minute. But the freshwater tanks, the planted, it's pretty close to the saltwater as far as like the amount of time I've heard. So try it out. It's very, very rewarding. The fish are beautiful. I think they're much more beautiful. Coral is a really awesome thing to get into. It's a whole not like I was thinking about coral when I was first doing this, and like, oh yeah, that's a cool decoration to have in your tank. I mean, I know it's an animal, but it just kind of sits there. But it's I can't even. You need to experience it. You need to see the coral like eating the food and all that stuff. It's much, much more rewarding to do a saltwater tank. More expensive though, much, much more expensive. Nitrates and phosphates. I try. I try to keep them, in the ideal range, which, not zero, just a little bit, a little bit more than zero, just for my stuff to thrive. I have a little bit dirtier of a system. The numbers are hard for me to remember. I'll like, I'll look at the book and I'll read it, and I test it and I check and like, oh okay, this is okay, but the numbers are kind of hard for me to. I'd say right now the nitrates and phosphates, I haven't tested them. I test them like every week. I haven't tested them in a week. Um, but they're probably on the high side of what I'd like them to be. I get a little bit of hair algae. I even have a tiny bit of cyano, which is weird. I have to suck that out. Um, but once I do water change, it'll bring it down. My Monopora thrives in this tank, so I must have a little bit of dirt in there for them to really be doing this. And I like to keep them a little bit dirtier. If it's pristine, then everything's gonna bleach out, which I'm sure you know. I don't feed a whole lot, too, which I've been trying to do to keep the phosphates and nitrates down a bit. I don't know why, but oh sure, that's what this is about. It's a Q&A, Niels. Um, I've been trying to get it down with the hair algae, but I don't know why. It just oh thanks. I try. I try to do I try to do a good job. It's so much time. And especially the nitrates and phosphates have just taken a lot of work, just to get them where they are right now. I don't know if you saw it in any of my earlier videos, but it got really bad. Like everything was covered in hair algae. So I did a whole peroxide dip and everything to kill that stuff off. It got really bad. But as long as you stay on top of it with your water changes and stuff, the water changes are the biggest thing to keep the nitrates and phosphates down, I've found, which I'm sure you know. I'll probably cut it at around 40 minutes. I'm starting to get dry in the mouth and I don't have water around me. Don't feel like drinking any fish water. I've done that multiple times before and it's not very fun, especially the saltwater stuff. It's not good. Um, but if you're new and you haven't seen much of this stream, it's going to be ending real quick here. But thanks for clicking on the stream. You can watch the replay once it's up on my channel. It'll probably be an hour or two after this because it needs to render and stuff. I encourage you to check that out if you are wondering what the rest of the stream was, or your question wasn't answered in the stream and you think of a question. You can leave it in the comments below on the published video and I will be sure to answer it to the best of my ability. So thank you all for coming and watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. You can leave it right now or down below after it's published. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you later. And